Hello, and welcome to this segment of the Armorer Store's Armoring Videos. This segment we're going to talk about all the clothing and other protective gear that you wear during fencing. We're going to talk about inspection, maintenance, and repair, and some repairs of these items, although not necessarily needing it, but upon occasion you'll have to do that. The different items that we're going to be covering are the mask, the jacket, the underarm protector or plastron, and the knickers and socks, and then the conductive equipment like Lemays for saber and foil, and then the saber glove, and then gloves in general. So we'll start off with the masks, which is probably the most important protective piece of equipment that you're wearing because it protects that beautiful face of yours. And we wouldn't want to have your modeling careers ruined by having a blade or something come in and scratch your face. So we'll start off with the basic épée mask. Now, between the épée and the foil mask, there's not much different, except that the foil mask has a conductive covering that goes over the lower portion of the bib. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on to this. When you're inspecting a mask, there are several things that you want to be aware of. You want to look for any obvious dents within the mesh area that might catch a point. You want to make sure that this protective covering over the weld area is in place. Now, I will say that some people have said that this is just decorative, that it's not necessary. That is not true. It is a regular or a part of the mask that needs to be in place. So, if it's loose, we'll talk about ways to repair it and put it back into place. The other thing that we're looking for is ensuring that all the rivets are in place. That this is what holds the mask together, and you don't want it to come apart or have any hole within the mesh that could become a point of entry for a broken blade. Make sure they're all in place. You want to make sure that the bib is in good condition and there's no gaps around where the bib connects into the rest of the mask. You don't want any holes or rips or tears in this area. The other thing you want to make sure is that the tongue at the back that it holds the mask into your head is in place. And what you don't want to have happen is this rivet missing and then the welds here breaking. Because if you do, and this is just flopping in place, it does nothing. It doesn't hold your mask on for you. The other thing that we're going to look at is the elastic band. This is your secondary safety feature. It has to be in place. It has to be tight. Now, it's also not something that you carry your mask by. You don't want to be carrying it around like this because you'll stretch that out. If it stretches too far and is not doing its function, then the mask can be rejected once you go through a control. Finally, the thing that we want to look at, two other things, I'm sorry, not finally, is the mask punch. This is a 12 kilogram spring-loaded punch that is used to test the integrity of the mesh. In order to hold it, you hold it in your hand like this, cradle the mask in your arm, press down firmly all the way to the bottom. The mesh should be strong enough to hold the probe up. If the probe goes through the mask, then it fails. You want to test in several places. On the front, I normally do 6, and then just for good measure on the sides, or what's called the trellis. The last thing I check is the integrity of the welds on the sides of the mask, and I do that by squeezing in on the mask. If the welds are broken, you can feel the metal move back and forth in between them. Okay? Do not be confused sometimes that when the mesh on the inside of the mask may be moving against itself and feel like a little crinkle. Again, when the weld is broken, you will be able to feel it. You can also take up the inside of the mask and look underneath at the weld itself to check the integrity. Repairs. If you have a hole through the bib, you can sew it shut. I suggest that you use dental floss, unwaxed, unscented, to do that. It's much stronger and will hold. But make sure that when you close it up, you make sure that that hole won't catch a point. Again, The main thing that you're looking for in any tear or any imperfection is something that will catch a point and cause the blade to break. Finally, if the protective coating comes up and is loose, you can take hot glue and put it under for a temporary fix. A more permanent fix would be take plumber's glue and put it around and underneath the rubber portion of the band. Be careful though. If you intend to fence with that mask within 24 hours, do not use plumber's glue. Go ahead and use some hot glue to stick it down temporarily, and then come back and use the hot glue or use the plumber's glue to permanently affix it. There are toxic fumes in the plumber's glue that if you put your face inside a closed environment, it will do some nasty things to you. So you don't want to do that. So that's the basic inspection of the mask. Now, masks can be washed. And the way you can wash them is you can either put it into a tub of water and hand wash it, or you can use your dishwasher. Put it in the dishwasher without soap, run it through, and then take it out before the drying cycle and let it air dry. That'll help get rid of the smell inside of your mask, and it will also help keep it clean. So, I have here an older style mask, and I talked about the bib. This mask is no longer legal for competition because it has a removable bib that can be taken out. Now, this was done years ago because you could take the bib out and you could wash it and you wouldn't have to worry about the mask rusting or things like that. Unfortunately, with this bib, once you get it back installed, is that it has a pocket here that can catch a point and can come up underneath. Now, I used to have a mask like this many years ago when I started fencing, and I had just that happen. I had a blade that actually passed through here and grazed my neck. So, the other thing with this is it does not have a rivet at the top, so that tongue is very susceptible to breaking. Again, this is not legal. The other style of mask that we'll talk about is the Saber Mask. The difference between the Saber Mask is that the surface is entirely conductive. You inspect it the same way. Make sure that all the rivets are in place, that the bib doesn't have any holes in it, that the welds are safe, that the tongue is not broken. The difference with this too is that it has metal plates that come over the edge of the Lemay material and the mask. Make sure that this is intact and does not come up and will catch a point. These can be replaced. You want to test the mask electrically, and we'll show you how to do that here in a bit with the conductive lamaze and such. The resistance on the entire mask must be less than 5 ohms. So for that you need a test box in order to be able to do that, or an ohm meter. The Lemay material can be repaired, and we'll show you that and how to do that here in a little bit. But again, everything that we talked about before, mask punch, rivets, all apply to the Saber Mask. Now, again, the mask punch. Let me show you a little thing that I've done with mine. Again, if you've seen the other videos that we've talked about repairing things, most things in fencing, the parts are round. Test punch is round. Round things like to do what? They like to roll. Therefore, I've taken a simple wire tie and I've wrapped it around and cut the end off. It prevents this from rolling away and landing on the floor. The next important thing is the jacket. This particular jacket happens to be approved by the FIE, the International Fencing Organization, and is required for all international events. Within the United States, FIE equipment is not required for any competition except for one item, and we'll get to that in a moment. The jacket, again, must be clean, must be free of any holes, rips, or tears. The Velcro that holds the neck piece must be in place and operative. If you put your name on the back, which is required for all national level events. This lettering must be at least 1 centimeter wide, 8 to 10 centimeters tall, blue, dark blue in color, and be able to be read at least 15 meters. If you go to my Facebook page, you'll see pictures that I've taken of various names and colors and styles that have been used throughout the world. Again, I will say that it must be blue, 1 centimeter wide, 8 to 10 centimeters tall, block letters. Underneath your jacket, you are required to wear what's called an underarm protector or a plastron. This is worn on the weapon arm side and is required to have a panel throughout the middle portion underneath your arm. There cannot be a single seam underneath that particular area. It must be a panel. Again, this too must be free of holes, rips, tears, and should be relatively clean. Knickers. Again, the same applies for cleanliness, lack of holes, rips, or tears. If they are in here, you can repair them, again, using the dental floss or sewing them. They also must have at least 10 centimeters overlap with your jacket, which means when you go on guard, there must be this much coverage between the bottom of your jacket and the knickers. Socks. Socks generally are any color these days, and I've seen everything from tiger stripe to pink to purple to various other colors. The only requirement for the socks is that they must go all the way up and be covered by the ends of the knickers on your legs. And they must stay up when you start fencing. That doesn't mean that when you're fencing they can't fall down. However, when you start fencing, they must stay up and be covering your entire leg. Talk about gloves. Recently, armorers at all U.S. national events have been required to inspect gloves for any holes or tears. This particular glove would not pass because of this hole. The reason why we do this is not that we've made up our own rule about it, but it falls under the category of the general condition that clothing must have in terms of having no holes, rips, or tears. This is a safety issue. This is a point where a blade could possibly go through. I say from my personal experience, a good friend of mine had a glove that had holes in the thumbs and the seams were coming apart, took a saber blade that went through the web of his fingers, and the point ended up somewhere around his wrist. This is why we now are inspecting gloves for any kinds of holes. Any holes must be repaired. Holes cannot be covered up with tape or any other fabric. If you put tape on your thumb or your fingers because of that's a wear point and you want extra protection, be prepared to either take the tape off or be able to turn your glove inside out to show that there's no hole underneath it. This is a good glove. No holes, no tears, no rips. One of the common misconceptions right now is that there is a requirement that gloves not have a separate slit in the cuff for body cords. That is not the case. It was proposed to the FIE that those be banned. It was never acted on. So if anyone rejects a glove for having a body cord slit in it, challenge them. Saber gloves, the same thing goes. Only it has a conductive cuff on it that has conductive material on the inside. When this is checked electrically, just like we did for the Saber Mask, and we'll show you for the Lemays, it must be less than 5 ohms all the way around. If the upper portion of the glove is in good shape, but the Lemay material is failed, what will happen is that armorers will mark either the area, if it's a small one that's dead, or the entire cuff with magic marker and put failed on it. That doesn't mean that you can't use the glove. All that means is that you cannot use it for Sabre unless you are using a manchette covering, which covers the same issue, or the same area as the regular cuff. If you want to have the cuff repaired, you can do so. The armorer should be giving it back to you without any markings or stamps, so you can have it repaired. Then you can return it and have it tested. If the entire cuff is dead or you don't, it is marked, then your manchette is checked separately and marked, and you use it over top of your regular glove. I said earlier that there is one piece of FIE equipment that is required for all U.S. competitions, and that is the Sabre glove. It must be an FIE 800 Newton glove in order to be used in fencing for Sabre at all levels. The FIE label will be found on the inside of the cuff. Lemays. Lemays follow the same general pattern as far as rips, tears, holes, with the addition that connectivity, it must be conductive, 5 ohms, all over the entire lemay, to include the collar. Now when we go into testing, we will test this collar, and I'm pretty sure that it won't pass. Sabre lemays, the same thing. Must be 5 ohms or less over the entire jacket, to include any of the sleeve areas. The other thing that must have for both Sabre and foil is a tab on the back. The tab must be at least 1 centimeter wide and at least 3 centimeters long. This one's a little bit longer than that, but that's okay. It must be attached in the center of the jacket. So that covers the basic information about the clothing. Let's talk about some repairs, especially to lemay material. If you have a dead spot, or if you're testing a particular area and you find a dead spot, you can discover where that is and mark it and put a patch over it. The patch can be any size. It can cover half of the jacket, or it can cover just a small portion of it. When you make a repair to the jacket, what you want to do is take a piece of lemay material, generally from another lemay that's dyed, take the good portion, cut a patch that is slightly larger, fold the edges underneath, and you can run a quick stitch around it using machine, or you can hand sew it. Be sure you get close to the edges and such that you don't have enough area that you can catch a point. If you have a dead spot on a Saber mask, one of the things that I have done in the past is taken a piece of material, and folded it with the metal to metal side, and put a small bead of super glue on the inside and folded it over. Again, when you do the patch, make sure that the first seam is towards the front of the mask so that you get it good and flat so it can't catch a point. Another thing that you can do to get a good conductivity is go to the beading section of the hobby store and buy a roll of metal thread. This will fit through a needle, and you can use it to make sure that you get good electrical conductivity around the edge of the patch. Thank you for watching this segment on clothing inspection repair. I hope you found it informative. I invite you to watch our other videos under the armoring section here on YouTube. Also, would ask that you visit our website at www.thearmorerstore.com. Thank you.